Hello SGD, Sacred Geometry Decoded, and not too much of a diversion, but I've been looking at the pyramids, and directly from the last upload I made where I showed the connection between the red and the bent pyramid, which is known, but also that actually the Khafre Pyramid also connects. But here's an interesting thing, it actually will join to the later Hermetic period. So this is a woodcut from Azoth of the Philosopher's Stone by Basil Valentine. Now that's an F, but back in those printing days, F and S were interchangeable. And so Azoth of the Philosopher's Stone. Now I did a whole series on Science of a Symbol series, and one on Hermeticist, famous Hermeticist, and this image always struck me, but I could never quite wrap my mind around it. But well, it turns out there's some cool symbolism going on, and that's the way that these Hermeticists worked. It was more a symbolic language, but they also had to conceal little facts. But there's an interesting thing going on here. So Basil Valentine, Basilius Valentinus, also his name, very famous figure, and so it's a later image depicting him. So it's not an actual portrait. It was done 1700s, some centuries afterwards, but this is, I'll put these links in the description. This is Secret Symbols of the Rosicrucians. I've translated that part there, and you have all these it's just one example. It's lovely artwork on its own to have a look at. That links will be in the description. Also put in 2 English translations, but it's full of really, really cool art. But it's nice science going on in there as well. Now here's 2 pages. That's the original, and this is the one of the translations. I'll provide 2 translations in the description. Now here I've underlined it in red, the original and the translation. Therefore in his Summa Perfectionis, Geber saith truly and rightly, he who hath no knowledge by himself of the beginning of nature is still far from this art. Now his name Abu Musa Jabir ibn Hayam, 1721 to 1815, very, very famous alchemist or chemist, and he's better known to most people as Geber. The word gibberish originates from Geber. Now there was Geber, and there was also Pseudo-Geber, another European later on, but in both cases it is believed that the works attributed to both Geber and Pseudo-Geber were in fact a pen name used by many others. So these other alchemists was maybe a little bit dangerous, but also to give yourself multiple reasons. But Geber arrives from gibberish, and whether Geber was the original author or whether it was just a pen name as well is argued about. So just a little bit under that, again underlined in blue, and here's a translation. Or as Basilius Valentinus saith, Basil Valentine, out of it cometh a spirit as white as snow, and another spirit as red as blood, both of which spirits have the third hidden within themselves. I did a whole series on this. Now there's all layers in this Hermeticism and alchemy, but there's a science in here as well. I'll put a couple links in the description, but Basil Valentine, or Basilius Valentinus, 15th century, famed alchemist, chemist, credited with discovering how to produce ammonia, sulfuric acid, and hydrochloric acid. As with Geber, it is believed that many of the works attributed to Basil Valentine are in fact by other authors using that as their pen name. Recently I just posted some montages of the imagery from Basil Valentine, Azoth of a Philosopher's Stone, and the 12 keys. Especially in the 12 keys video, you'll find links in there. Again, earlier videos, a whole series, but you can see how the alchemy of Basil Valentine is the sorry, the typo there, Valentine, and with a capital B, but there's actually scientific knowledge embedded in it. This was written at a time when modern notation and modern terms were not set in stone, but also a dangerous time because you had to be careful what you were saying in many aspects, because science, math was actually quite a dangerous thing to be involved with. So around here, the outside, Frater Basilius Valentinus, monk of the Benedictine order, a Hermetic philosopher, and Hermes, Hermeticism, Hermes Trismegistus, which this all connects to Thoth, Seshat, Nuar and Fuzi. Another famed alchemist at the time was John Dee, very famous figure, especially in the early Elizabethan period, but he was a teacher, a professor of Euclidean geometry. This is what links all of these Hermeticists, is geometry. Albrecht Durer, another very famous artist, but not so outside of the circles. His geometry is not as, he's more as thought of as an artist rather than a geometrician, but he certainly was a geometrician. And I'll put I'll put two links in the description regarding Albrecht Durer. Firstly, they both relate to one another. Durer's pentagram, there's this famous image of the 6/5 and the geometry of Durer, where he showed how to draw a pentagon/pentagram, and it is incorrect, and I would argue strongly that it was incorrect on purpose to encode something very important, and that this knowledge is also to be found, for instance, in Heliopolis in Egypt, and that there is astronomical knowledge embedded in this incorrect pentagram/pentagon. I'll put both those links in the description, because it's, again, but these Hermeticists were, they all talk about Hermes Trismegistus, the Corpus Hermetica, the quadrivium, and that this emerged from a much earlier time in history. Exactly when, that could be argued, but all Copernicus, Giordano Bruno were all Hermeticists, like literally into Hermes and the Corpus Hermetica. Not in a general term, but literally Hermeticists, almost in a religious sense. So back to this image, first woodcut from Azoth of the Philosopher's Stone. Now, Azoth translates basically to Mercury, or the first material, but I won't go into that for now. But this also links both the Khafre, not just both, the Khafre, the red, and the bent pyramid. Its lovely geometry is embedded in this image. This is one of the more common images of Hermes Trismegistus. Notice the sun and the moon. Sun and moon. Also the as above, so below emerges from Hermes Trismegistus, as he's called. Heinrich Kunraf, another very important Hermeticist. This is an image from one of his works showing the emerald tablet of Hermes Trismegistus, or Hermes the thrice great. Not so well known is that Isaac Newton was a Hermeticist, an alchemist, and he did a translation of the emerald tablet. There are many translations, but this is Isaac Newton's translation. "'Tis true without lying, certain and most true. That which is below is like that which is above, and that which is above is like that which is below, to do the miracles of only one thing." Now, you can find this on the internets, but as above, so below. I'll also link this video in the description talking about the imagery and the work of the lesser known period of Isaac Newton. But when it comes to as above, so below, it's very reminiscent of every action has an opposite and equal reaction. This is a work dissertation on the antiquity, origin and design of the principal pyramids of Egypt. And that's by Isaac Newton. He was very interested, so were all these Hermeticists, in the pyramid, but with its measures, probable determination of the ancient Hebrew and Egyptian cubit, measurement, original form and measures of the Ark of Noah. They were looking at it from a different perspective, but they were still looking for the same thing. They were metrologists, they were geometricians, they were looking for the geometry and the metrology and the information contained therein, and I'll link that PDF in the description as well. Measure, weights and measure. Thoth and Seshat. Hermes in Greek, Mercury Romans knew him as Mercury. Hermes Trismegistus. The same things happening in China with Nuar and Fuzi. If you look up the figurism movement in regards to Jesuits and their activities in China and what they were saying, but Nuar and Fuzi, the compass and straight edge. Compass and straight edge. Okay. There's also astronomical connections in all these images, but geometry, astronomy, weights and measures. This is what links all of these so important gods and these so important figures, where it's Newton, Kunraf, Mikkelspacher, Basil Valentine, you name it. All these guys are into geometry, astronomy, weights and measures. This is what unites them all. That's what the Hermeticists do. They're into their geometry, they're into their metrology. Geometry, measurement. What? Metra. Yeah. So back to this. Now, how does this image link Khafre, red, and the bent pyramid? First, we start with the red and the bent pyramid. They're both of equal height. It's said that the bent pyramid was changed the angle because of various reasons in construction. Well, that's recent surveys using top-of-the-line equipment have shown that the original theory that it was collapsing from the inside doesn't work, because the bottom section of a pyramid should be bowed out, but it's actually bowed in. But yeah, if it was a mistake, it's a wonderfully perfect geometric mistake in this symphony of coincidence which links all the pyramids. But what happens is that the red pyramid, and the red pyramid, bent pyramid, are the same height. However, if you shrink the red pyramid down, or if you were just to use it at full height, but that top section of a bent pyramid is equal geometry to the red pyramid, you're looking at an angle of 43 degrees and 22 minutes, or 43.3 degrees. Very close to that. Slight variations on each side, but very, very, very close to... depends on what side you look at. It's going to change so little, but this triangle here at the top, well, what is it? It's 43 and 1/3 degrees. Now, I tested this using GeoGebra. Now, you can, if you move the points ever so slightly, you're going to get a slightly different angle, but it's, however you do it, you're going to hit an angle at around 43 and 1/3 degrees. I could have altered it to be exactly the angle that I wanted, which would be 43.3666, etc. degrees, but 43 and 1/3. I tested on GeoGebra. You can test it for yourself. So the angle of the bent pyramid, if it's 43 degrees 22 minutes, would be 43.36 degrees. We're still, that's 3/100ths of a degree difference. This is how close it is. It's virtually in... Only by the best tech can you measure that angle. So both the red pyramid, which is equal to the top section of a bent pyramid, would fit into this section. So top section of a bent pyramid matches that triangle, and the red pyramid, that's how it would look if it's placed underneath. And how does the Khafre pyramid look? Well, mostly this is a cross section. This is a cross section, but doesn't work on the Khafre pyramid as a cross section. What you need to do is look at it from the corner. This often overlooked the corner angles of the pyramids. Lots more to come on that because it extends things so much. But 43.31 degrees using the idealized measures, but again slight variations on each side. And even if that was precise, that's still 5/100ths of a degree. Well within any acceptable margins of error in any field. But of course, each side is a slight variance, and we could get much closer to that. So, viewed from the corner, Khafre's pyramid fits into there. They all fit rather nicely. It's a system of geometry. So the red triangle links these three pyramids. And what about the blue? Well, that's salt, sulfur, and mercury. That's something else. But now let's look at just the bent pyramid. This blue equilateral triangle links with the geometry of the lower portion of the bent pyramid. So here's this 6/5 image. It's very important geometry, 6s and 5s. Turn it on its side, it becomes more familiar. We see the Star of David and the Pentagram, how they connect together. Each side would be equal. Nice, lovely geometry going on in there. And that brings us to this. And what we actually find is the 6s and 5s, the pentagon and the hexagon, is embedded in the geometry of the bent pyramid, which relates to this image here. That's the top of the bent pyramid. That's the bottom of the bent pyramid. And it's about thinking in 3 dimensions rather than the 2. Okay, so now I'll run an animation and I'll explain this and show this a little bit better, because it's again thinking in multiple dimensions, because the octahedron, how that relates to 2-dimensional hexagon or the Star of David. And now I'll run this animation. So we begin with 4 pentagons. Now each of those red sections makes up 1/5 of a pentagon. If we take those sections and fold them up until they meet one another, what we do is we create either the red pyramid or the top section of the bent pyramid. Of course, the pentagon pentagram has multiple relations. It's actually all across the whole thing, pentagons, pentagrams, it's all about 5, a golden number, the perfect number. So by folding up these sections of pentagram / pentagon, we get the red pyramid or the top section of the bent pyramid. So the alleged mistake of the bent pyramid is actually a wonderful geometric construction, and it relates to the 6 and the 5, or the hexagon and the pentagon. So the top section, bent pyramid, series of pentagons folded up from one another. Now we have a series of hexagons, which are made up of a series of 6 equilateral triangles, just like that blue triangle, salt, sulfur and mercury, that we saw with Basil Valentine's Azoth of the Philosopher's Stone. So if we take 4 equilateral triangles and fold them up together until they meet, we create many things. Firstly, we create the base angle of the bent pyramid, but we also create an octahedron. So if you were to take this blue pyramid, slice the top off, you get the base of the bent pyramid, but you also create 1/2 of an octahedron. That's based on the hexagon. And what happens if you rotate an octahedron? Star of David pattern emerges from it again. 3-dimensional gives a 2-dimensional perspective. It's like the shadow of an octahedron is the Star of David, as we see there. And of course the octahedron, one of the 5 platonic solids, creates the base angle of the bent pyramid. If the bent pyramid continued at that angle, we would create an octahedron, and each face of the bent pyramid would be an equilateral triangle. Vesica, seed of life, flower of life construction, all this geometry intricately linked. So these Hermetic themes, these themes of the Hermeticists, who are essentially, to the man and the lady, geometricians and metrologists, geometry and measurement, which relate so strongly to science, to architecture, to just basically knowledge and science, which is why the gods such as Hermes, Thoth, Nuar and Fuzi, Mercury are all gods of weights, measures and astronomy and geometry and all these related themes. So this has been SGD. Thank you for watching. I'll put plenty of links in the description, and if you want to contribute to the channel, I'll put a PayPal link in there as well. Cheers and have a good one.